Are you worried that your partner's going to leave you because you're an imposter? Let's talk about it. Did you know that about 70% of men and women struggle with imposter syndrome? You heard of that before? I'm Dr. Leslie Davis. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor and relationship coach. And today I'm going to share a little bit of insight about imposter syndrome and how it impacts our relationships. So I've been working with a few clients lately that have really struggled with feeling anxious in their relationships. And of course, I highlight their anxious attachment style. But it got me thinking about, is there something else going on? Is there this sense of self-worth that makes them feel more anxious in their relationship? And I started looking into imposter syndrome. And typically, imposter syndrome is something that is discussed when it relates to someone in their career and how they feel like they're not worthy of the accolades that they receive, or they're not worthy of the position that they are called to, because they just don't trust themselves and they feel like eventually someone's going to see the truth about who they are and maybe rip that title away from them. This also happens in relationships. And if you think about having an anxious attachment style, imposter syndrome can creep up pretty easily because you're already anxious about being in the relationship and you're anxious about losing that connection with your partner. And so you might feel like you're an imposter in that relationship. So what does an imposter syndrome look like in relationships? You might feel like you're unworthy of being loved. You might feel like you're unworthy to love someone. Maybe you're not good enough. And these are messages that you tell yourself over and over, and that impacts your ability to connect with your partner. It impacts the way you communicate with them. So if you have anxious attachment style, it's likely that, of course, you're chasing that person, wanting to connect with them, but you're always worried about, what are you doing wrong in this relationship? Maybe you said the wrong thing. Maybe you're not good enough because you can't cook, or you're not working as much as your partner. You're just underachieving compared to them. And so you might be comparing yourself all the time to your partner and their worth, not even seeing your own. If you have avoidant attachment style and you struggle with imposter syndrome, it's likely that you're often sabotaging those relationships because you don't feel worthy of being in the relationship. Your partner has no idea that that's what's going on. They might just feel like you're being cold and you just don't want to deal with the relationship anymore. But the truth is, you don't feel worthy of being in that relationship with that person. And so the best thing for you to do is walk away. That doesn't mean you don't want the relationship. It just means that you don't feel worthy enough to connect with that person. When I was thinking about some examples of what people might have seen on TV of what this looks like, there are two characters that came to mind. The first character is Olivia Pope from Scandal. Now, I used to watch that show all the time. I loved her character. I loved how much of a boss she was. And that's what most people saw in the show and in real life when we're watching her. We saw her being motivated. We saw her owning a business. We saw her running the world, really. And everyone respected her and who she was and what she did. And she was confident in her abilities to manage other people. But if you look at her romantic life was a hot mess. I'm not gonna lie. She was dating multiple guys and she wasn't connecting with them the way they wanted to and really the way that she wanted to. And oftentimes she sabotaged those relationships. And deep down, you could see that she didn't value herself. She didn't feel like she was worthy of being with those certain people. And she was always chasing what she could do to get away from them because she didn't want to be found out. The next character that comes to mind is Mary Jane from Being Mary Jane. That's another show that I just loved from day one, the first episode. And that first episode is really what got my attention about her character, and I really related to her in some moments. So Being Mary Jane, that character was high achieving. She was in the limelight. She was on the news as an anchor. She had a great family, wealthy family. She came from a great background. She seemed to have everything that everybody wanted. But her relationship lifestyle was a hot mess as well. And one of the first things that I recall about being Mary Jane was kind of scanning her bedroom environment. And that's the most sacred place in the home, right? So her bedroom and her bathroom, she had all these Post-its up, just kind of giving herself, messages and affirmations of you're a good person, or how to think of herself in a better limelight. So if you take note of that, she was confident outside of her home, outside of romance, and outside of her partner. But with her romantic partner, she felt like she wasn't good enough. She was always wondering how she could be better. She was always wondering if she did something wrong in the relationship. And she never really figured it out. And I'll tell you from personal experience, that is something that I may have struggled with for a few years. The people that I dated always told me, you're too good for me. And I would say, no, I'm not too good for you. Like, you're a good person. I think we're a good match. But they knew that there was something better inside of me that I just didn't see in myself. And there were many times where I was always questioning, am I not doing enough? Is there something I need to change about myself? Am I not good enough? And I really started to believe I was not worthy of love. It took a few relationships to just realize it really wasn't me, it was them. And I'm glad I broke free from that. But I had to really tap into the messages that I was receiving about the interactions that I was having with the people I was dating. They were being cold at times. They were being distant with me. And so I always thought, well, maybe I'm not doing enough. Maybe they're not interested in me anymore. And so I would try to do things to keep them interested. And it just wasn't enough. And it wasn't that I wasn't interesting or that I wasn't good enough. They just weren't the right person for me. So if that's something that you struggle with, I really want you to take note of, do you feel like an imposter in your relationship? Do you feel like you're being fake sometimes? Do you feel like you're being a person that you really aren't just to stay in the relationship? And if that's you, just know that you don't have to do that. The best thing to do is just be yourself. Be who you truly are. When you are yourself and you tap into that, you're going to expose yourself to the right people. The right person is going to come along and love you the way that you are. They're going to make you a better person, but just know that your worth right now is more than you can imagine. And so I want you to love yourself before you love someone else.